Victory Garden.
Yeah, this is off the Peepbell Row in front of James's place. So he's going to talk about special tasks.
Yeah, I'm. Was it watered enough this morning? You think you didn't notice any?
I think you need to water a little more. There's some dry up at the top with stuff.
Already?
Yeah.
I watered it all.
Okay.
No,
But that's in the sun there on that side.
Oh, okay, I'll
right?
do that this evening then. So I don't water as much, I think, as Pauline does because I'm.
And that's a pretty big silvery fir tree tomato.
That's a nice one.
Yep. You got 2 of those today.
Yeah, weird name for them, but maybe they look silvery somewhere along the line. Anyway, I used to take care of the grounds for one summer in around the city hall and library, downtown library, a few other places. And I had to take care of some petunias and some flowers on the north side of the library. I was strapped for time. I gave them lots of free overtime that summer, but I used an oscillating sprinkler, and it turns out I overwatered. I managed to keep those things alive. That was like at the very beginning of flower season, which would be in early July. And but they started to show signs of getting, is it mold or what is it that flowers get on them?
What, like powdery mildew
or something? Yeah, powdery mildew. That would be the best guess. But I had to be really careful and water all the flowers by hand and that sort of stuff. So I'm really paranoid about overwatering plants. So I'd rather underwater and have them kind of limp along than get powdery mildew and just die them. Especially like with flowers, because people are walking by, looking at flowers, stuff like that. You're a public employee. So. Anyway, I did a good enough job that summer. I was winterizing the place, taking all the hoses up. My last day on that job in the summertime, be around Labor Day, and a foreman for another sub-department or whatever of parks came along and he said to me, "I want you on my crew." Word had got out that I'd kind of done the job, even though I was a rookie on that job. And I said, "I don't have a driver's license on your crew. Everyone has to have a driver's license." He said, "I know you'll get it." And guess what? He was right. And along with him, and a guy who was a Bobcat operator there, and the guy's dead now, Mennonite guy, very good worker, had something like a diploma and 2 degrees, or 2 diplomas and a degree. I think it was 2 degrees and a diploma. And one of those degrees, I think, was in management. We managed to really get that crew operating. And we did the work. What I said was, oftentimes was, let's have fun and get the job done. And that's what we did. And people wanted to join the crew. And then one bad apple spoiled the whole bunch, baby. Kind of channeling Michael Jackson there. Anyway, on to bigger and worse things, actually. I think I've introduced you to this thing. Special tasks. So, welcome to the world of euphemism. Now, I don't recall what the Russian is for this. This is a translation of a particular modus operandi, or really like a department or for special tasks, and it'd be in I believe it was in the KGB. So here's a KGB officer, looking pretty distinctive, and we'll show a picture of him when he got a little bit older. He's blind in one eye and stuff like that, but this is around the time. This is 1993. I think this book dates from 1994. There he is, fine head of hair. I'm almost jealous. You know what I'm saying? You can see he had a fine head of hair when he was young and vigorous. Unfortunately, he was vigorous in the wrong type of way. Now I'm going to show you a picture of this guy when he was a young pup, when he was 14 years old. 93, 35. I don't know. I'd say he was born a little after 1900. So here's this guy. His name is Sudoplatov. I'm not sure where the accent comes. Pseudo means O is kind of like Greek O, which is almost like the equivalent of a dash. Sud means kind of like justice. Platov, I think, would be a form of palace. This might be a Hall of Justice or something like that. Palace of Justice. So something like a courthouse. Could be wrong. Got to be careful about that. It could be wrong about Platov. The OV is not really important to be plat or palat. Get it scrunched up. Just trying to figure it out. I haven't actually seen the analysis. Pavel, which is Russian for Paul, and Anatoly, which means Anatolian, coming from the east. Anatolia basically means the east in Greek. Don't believe me? Check it out. Present-day Turkey, roughly. With Jerrold L and Leona P. Schecter. Weird way of spelling Schecter, but I wouldn't be surprised if they were Jewish. But it said German, kind of misspelled Schecter. Now, Anatoly, or Pavel, Paul, this is Pavel, Sudoplatov, Anatoly, I think is his son. His wife was Jewish, and he eventually paid for it. He survived still. I think he was actually slated, maybe even for the pit, because of his Jewish relationship to his wife, relationship to a Jew. But he survived still, just barely. And then Khrushchev didn't like him very much. I wouldn't trust him any farther than I could throw him, but kick him maybe. But Khrushchev had him in jail, and Russian jails weren't quite the same as jails in a democracy. So in jail, he lost the use of an eye. Yeah. Anyway, I think he was finally released in 1968, something like that. So it was like from 50-something or other, maybe 53 to 1968. So here he is. He's in the Cheka, Pavel Sudoplatov. This is his older brother, who died in 1921. Here he survived until at least 1994. Let me see when this book was built. 1994, I remember that correctly. 1994. So he survived his older brother by 73 years. But his poor older brother, what did he belong to? He was Nikolai, his older brother, was a Cheka officer. Cheka. So, or people might mispronounce it Cheka, but I think it's supposed to be said Cheka. I think that's just an initialism, Cheka. Anyway, it was kind of like the predecessor of the KGB and the NKVD and all that sort of stuff. Horrible person, horrible group, a terrorist group, state terror, eventually, under Lenin, and they killed lots of people. So here he is, a 14-year-old, he's an apprentice in this terrorist organization. Understand, here he's all dressed up nice and fancily. Here he's dressed up in military garb. He is the head of a terrorist organization or a sub-organization, a state terror organization, okay? Working for the KGB. A horrible person. Doesn't matter how innocent. He's probably pretty horrible when he's 14 years old. Look at this guy. He was a Cheka officer. He's a horrible person, okay? A terrorist. They're looking at terrorists here. Doesn't matter if they're style themselves as left-wing terror. So here's some of the people that he worked, his predecessors, some of the people he worked with, or worked kind of in parallel with. I think this is his wife. Emma Kaganovich. Was that his name? Kaganov was a commie functionary, fairly high up in the hierarchy. Of course, it didn't really matter where you were. Your life was in total danger. It didn't matter where you were in the Soviet Union, unless you were Stalin, because the whole thing was run by Stalin. So here's a guy, someone called him the bloodthirsty dwarf. Apparently he's quite short. I can't see singling out his size. You see his eyes are just horrific. But he was bloodthirsty. Nikolai Yezhov. I don't know where the accent comes. Could be Yezhov. Yezhov, we're going to say. Nikolai. NKVD chief, 1936-1938. Short while. He wiped out, I think, or helped wipe out his predecessor, Yagoda. Forgotten the first name of Yagoda. It's a funny name. It means berry, but it also means Yagoda, like plural. If you pluralize that, I can't remember how you pluralize it. It means buns, like buttocks or whatever. Berries, they call them. If I got it right, yeah. So here's this guy, his predecessor, a horrible killer, Yagoda. His name was Buttock. Okay. You could also say berry, but I prefer Buttock. Here's a horrible guy, Merkulov. I'm not sure where the accent comes. Merkulov. He was head of the People's Commissariat for State Security, but it's actually Monsters Commissariat for State Security. Yeah, but not security of the state, but of the people of the state. And so that's the NKGB. Okay, NKGB. You drop the N, you've got KGB. Kind of like a predecessor of the KGB. Okay, so NKVD's a little bit different. I think KGB's more external affairs, NKVD more internal. I think it's something like the Nutri for the V. Could be wrong. Jello, I think is what is D is doings or dealings or whatever. Here's a horrible little guy, Lavrenti Beria. Probably misaccented. A minority within. It came from a minority within Georgia. They call them Mingrelians, and Stalin was in the process of wiping them out. He probably would have wiped out Beria. But anyone who knows anything knows that Beria probably wiped out Stalin before Stalin could get to him. So Beria was the commissar, later Minister of Internal Affairs. Probably the NKVD. Horrible person. Apparently had a real fun time with a lot of underage girls. And they didn't have a fun time with him. I don't know how old they were. A horrible person. A real killer. He was actually going to take over from Stalin. And a bunch of people, including Georgy, or Georgy, I prefer to call him, Malenkov, Nikita Khrushchev, Vyacheslav, is that his name? Vyacheslav. I said Vyacheslav, but I think it's Vyacheslav Molotov. His name means hammer. That wasn't his real name, Molotov. You notice this similarity with mallet? I don't think that's accidental. We're talking about an Indo-European language, Russian. Mallet. Eh? Molotov. And one other guy. Was it Kaganovich? No, Kaganov, I should say. Keep on wanting to Serbianize his name. Or Croatianize his name. I think he was actually Jewish. But, yeah, he was going to kind of liberalize things, and then that was in 1953. He was wiped out. I think he got a bullet in the back of the neck or head or whatever. And maybe that was, Zhukov was one of the guys involved. Zhukov, who was one of the big generals, maybe the biggest general of the Soviet Army in World War II. Zhukov, his name means bug. Zhuk means bug, if I'm not mistaken. Anyway, they made sure these plotters, Khrushchev, Malenkov, and I believe it was Molotov, made sure that they had the army on their side, or at least the leader of the army, when they wiped this guy out, because this guy was really dangerous. If you didn't wipe him out, you were going to get wiped out. And, you know, like, it wouldn't be a bullet in the back of the head. You'd be in the basement of something like the Lubyanka or the Butyrka. I think the Lubyanka was the head of the spy, place where the spy agent was one of them. And so the office stuff, and then down in the cellar, fun things went on, where stuff that idiots like this considered fun. And so they would have taken their time with Khrushchev and Molotov and Malenkov before they actually wiped them up. Wiped them up. Here's a nasty couple. They were responsible as much as anyone for getting atomic secrets out of the, what they call them, Americans, but also to a great extent from Britain, researchers and stuff like that. So Zarubina and Elizabeth and Vasily Zarubov. I don't know what that means. Does that mean from across the border or something like that? And here's another horrible person. So Zoya Rubkina, she was a spy too, and an ambassador. Was she an ambassador? Some sort of diplomat. Kollontai, Alexandra Kollontai. Let's see if I remember the name. Ambassador Alexandra Kollontai. Not sure where the accent comes. Okay, so there's some very nasty people here. Oh yeah, here's poor Helen Hayes. Doesn't know any better. She looks like a kid, or most adolescents. Here's a Solomon Michoels, or however you pronounce his name, a Jewish actor. And he was over here on a charm expedition during World War II, 42 to 45 maybe. This is 1943. He's shaking hands with, well, it looks as though he's getting ready to kiss her hands. Not a very attractive looking fellow. He must have been, this is what you call a charm offensive, though. Probably very offensive, really. Anyway, he was over to get money from Jewish causes to help Russia recover from the depredations that Hitler visited on Russia. But the big trouble is a lot of the depredations visited on Russia were compliments of Stalin even before Lenin. Yeah, so here's another guy, the top underling for Pavel Sudoplatov, a guy called Eitington. And you're going, that doesn't sound Russian. It's not. He looks almost like an overweight Leonard Cohen. He's Jewish, right? Eitington. And he was put in jail by the successors of Stalin, along with Sudoplatov. Sudoplatov and Eitington were stone cold killers, right? This guy feels a sense of grievance, I'm sure, or felt. I'm pretty sure he's long dead now, about being put in jail for serving the Soviet state. But you know, he was a stone cold. Speaking of stone cold killers, here's the guy who wiped out. I've never seen a picture of him before. Here's two pictures of him when he's old and in the way. Mercader. I guess he was Spanish or something. Ramon Mercader, alias Frank Jackson, awaits treatment of head wounds inflicted by Trotsky's bodyguards. So he wipes out Trotsky in Mexico, and they actually just give him a few years. Was it 20 years? He ended up surviving. He ended up in Moscow in 1962. So that's 21 years later. Yeah. Let him survive. But, you know, like if someone had wiped out Stalin or something like that, if they were caught, Beria wasn't. Yeah. I think Beria, what he did would have, Stalin was on warfarin, that's rat poison. My mother was on it. And she thought when they started off on it, she was saying, they're trying to feed me rat poison. Can you imagine trying to feed that? So that was around 19 maybe. But 50 years before they were using it on, 40 years before they were using it on Joseph Stalin. But can you imagine a doctor prescribing to Stalin Here's some warfarin. We're not going to tell you it's rat poison. Incredible. Kept him alive. My suspicion is Beria arranged for a placebo to be given to Stalin. And he died, it looks like, of a stroke. So I think that's the way Beria managed it. So here's a couple of so-called security agents taken by security agents of them. No, rather, these are San Francisco resident Gregory Heifetz. There we go, Heifetz. So resident, spelled with a Z. He's a commie agent. Here he is, in a fedora, looking like a mafia kind of guy. And he was worse, really. And Gregory Kasparov, right here. Not the Gary Kasparov, famous for chess, stuff like that. Gregory. And in between, here's this guy. This is what you call a useful idiot. So this is someone working on the Manhattan Project. So the Manhattan Project is the thing that developed the two types of atomic bombs used in World War II. And who is this guy? Well, this is Dr. Martin Kamen. So Kamen is Russian for stone, and my suspicion is Kamen is like a Russian version of Stein, which is German for stone. Einstein, it's a common name used for Jewish people, last name, stuff like that. Anyway, Martin Kamen. So these guys look pretty friendly with him. You know, like if two guys approached me on the street looking like thugs like this, I wouldn't be smiling the way this guy is. He's friendly with these guys, right? You see what I'm saying? He doesn't seem, you know, it's not like a forced smile or anything like that. He seems to be, friendly. So, yeah, he's a staff chemist at the Radiation Laboratory at the University of California. So that would be almost certainly Berkeley, where Oppenheimer worked out of, at least initially. Eventually he started working at Los Alamos in New Mexico. He chose the site, apparently. It's just outside of Santa Fe, I believe. And it's probably still high security there. Igor Kurchatov, the guy who's given credit for developing the bomb, atomic bomb, the Soviet atomic bomb, he had nothing to do with it. He basically just took stuff that was fed to him via these idiots like him, Klaus Fuchs, a German guy, but visited on the Manhattan Project by English. English seemed to be very bad at counter-espionage, like counterintelligence, like weeding out the good apples from the bad apples. Some of the worst Russian spies in the West all came from England. It's not just Klaus Fuchs. There are guys who actually came from the British Isles. A guy called Donald MacLean, George Blake, Kim Philby, and there was one other scumbag, MacLean, Blake, Philby, Burgess, Guy Burgess. And I think there are other ones as well. I'm glitching on money. What was his name? Nunn May or something like that. There is a pretty good index in here. I'm just going to see if I can find Nunn May. I think it's one of those double-barreled English names. Okay. Maybe it's just under May. Sam Nunn May? It starts with S. Sorry to put you through this, folks, but you're getting May. I should be looking at May. No, I already looked that up. Yeah, Alan, not Sam. Alan, I got the right vowel. Alan Nunn May. For some reason or other, they give his middle name there. Alan Nunn May. Yeah, he was another guy, and I think he came through the Brits came to the spying. I don't know if he was quite on the Manhattan Project. Here are some scumbugs. So this guy calls, one of the reviewers rather calls, so there's blurbs in his back and the front. calls this guy Enrico Fermi the ridiculous, and I think something like the ridiculous. Now, Enrico Fermi, according to his own account, was at a stoplight, maybe around 1930, 31, somewhere around there, and he figured out we're at a stop sign. I don't know which place, and he came up with the idea of a chain reaction, nuclear chain reaction. Ridiculous, I don't know. The example he raises, he wanted to get a patent out on nuclear energy, because he's the guy who thought up the whole idea. The chain reaction that developed huge power. And I think he, along with Einstein, applied for it. And, no, that was a refrigerator thing. I think it was just him. And the patent, I think this probably in the United States, the patent office said, well, you've got to have a workable plan for developing. Say what? You see how that it discourages original basic research, rewards research that's more technological in nature, much less creative. And without him, the people who actually came up with nuclear power, it wouldn't have happened. They wouldn't have been able to figure it out. But this guy wasn't able to. And that's not ridiculous. They don't understand he's actually making a point. He didn't like capitalism, from what I can tell. I'm not a big fan either. There are worse things, and this guy's a representative of a much worse thing, communism. There's fascism, a form of socialism, National Socialism, that's way worse than capitalism. Not capitalists, okay? You got that clear? Nazis aren't capitalists. We can go around calling capitalists Nazis all you want, but they're not. Okay? This guy, the guy writing this defense, or the guy who's ghostwriting it, Jerrold, or the people, the guy and gal, defend Enrico Fermi. So he had a Jewish wife, he's Italian. He actually started the first chain reaction. I believe it was at the University of Chicago, maybe as late as early 1943, but 42, 43, somewhere around there. But Pavel Sudoplatov says that these guys were knowing agents, not agents, but sources of information for the bomb, for him, and then he passed it on, the information on to, through maybe a couple of different layers, to Joseph Stalin. Oh, Joseph Stalin at that point in time was the biggest mass murderer in the history of the world. He had a head start on Hitler, and Hitler, I don't think, killed nearly as many people. Not to excuse Hitler. Hitler was more virulent. He was in power for a shorter time. More virulent, more deadly. But Joseph Stalin, at the time the Manhattan Project was going on, was the biggest mass murderer. He ended up being a bigger mass murderer than Hitler. Hitler had a shorter career. Okay? He gave the secret of the atomic bomb. These guys, according to this guy, and they did it for free. Okay? He says they weren't agents. They knew what they were doing. Their idea was, we can't let Hitler get the bomb first because he's a bad, bad guy. And it's actually, I thought it was because this guy is married to a Jewish wife. This guy was Jewish.